Hey guys, this is Comic Uno, and today I'm doing Comic Uno's Best Comics of the Week. And this week I had a pretty heavy haul, I guess. It was about 14 comics this week, so let's get started. Number 14 for me was Fantastic Four, issue 19. I got this issue digitally. And Fantastic Four, I do like Dan Slott's run a lot on the book. I just do not like this arc very much, the origins of how the Fantastic Four came to be. And I feel like they focused so much on this other planet and these other characters that it lost a lot of focus. It was very crowded, this issue, and then even that girl coming back with them, I'm like, I didn't really have a connection to them, and that was a big issue, and I feel like it took away from the family dynamic that we know and love from the Fantastic Four, and what's been a really big positive of the book. So overall, I gave this 1.5 stars. I really just didn't have a fun time with this one, which is sad, but I hope that there's some promise for the future. But honestly, the stories that they're interweaving to tease the future storylines also didn't really get me too excited, so we'll have to see. But that was number 14. Moving on to number 13. I am sad to see this so low, but that is The Amazing Mary Jane, issue 5. I believe this is a maxi series, so I think it was going to be a 6-issue mini, and then it got promoted as a maxi, so which meaning it's a 12-issue series. So with this issue, I just feel like there's not much of a direction for this book. They're making the movie's about to end, and then there's ways to make the movie continue. And honestly, the reason this is so low is that there's this scene in this book where Mary Jane's fighting like the whole entire Sinister Six and is just able to punch them and like get them down without anything else. Now, I do think Mary Jane is a very capable person, and I think she could defeat the Sinister Six if she wanted to, but not with a solid punch. Like, she doesn't have superpowers, so I was so confused by that, and I thought, oh, is this like part of the movie? And it wasn't, and I don't know. I didn't love the book, sadly, even though I like the film aspect to it, but even in this issue, I don't feel like it saved it for me. So the artwork is pretty solid. I love Mary Jane, but I don't know if I completely love this direction. So I'm giving that 2 stars, and that is number 13. Moving on to number 12. And number 12, this is probably the lowest the series has been, because I really do love this creator, but there wasn't a lot in this issue, and that is 5 Years, issue 8. That's Terry Moore's 5 Years. And I believe there's only 2 more issues left of this book. And that's also, I would say, the reason why this was so low is because not a lot is happening. And we only have 2 issues left for the end of this world, right? So I just wish there was a bit more build-up. Half this issue is silent. So it's that Stephanie character looking for the papyrus in Kachu and Francine's house. We get to see that this woman finds it, and that's the issue. There's not much here, and that was really disappointing for me. And usually, even with slower issues, there's some really good character moments, but there wasn't even a chance for that. There wasn't even a lot of character beats here. So overall, I'm going to give that 2 stars. I was really disappointed with this issue. I hope the penultimate in the last issue picks that up, or there's an announcement of another series that's connected to all this. So moving on, I believe we're up to number 11, and that is the big issue from this week, and that is Batman issue 89. People really want this book. I got the cover A, so I'm glad I was subscribed to this book, but yeah, this is the first appearance, kind of Punchline, which is the new Batman villain, and then Hella Arisen, which I hope I could get next week, is the actual first appearance of Punchline, and you know people are gonna go crazy for that. So a lot of like collectors have been wanting this in their collection. But yeah, going into Batman issue 89, we get to see Punchline for a second. So I'm gonna show you the page right there, and I actually loved the last panel of this book. I didn't really like this issue, but I enjoyed the last panel where we finally get to the Joker, because the Joker's kind of hinted throughout the issue, and Harley's like, I want to kill him, and Catwoman's like, yeah, I understand that. Go for it. And we get to see that the Joker knows the Bat family, who they are. I'm like, oh, that's really cool. I'm interested in that. But everything else leading to it was slow burn. There's so many villains, so much happening here, but not a lot of plot or narrative. I also didn't really love how Batman talk to Catwoman? I don't know. There was this weird art scene where it looks like he like hits her or pulls her. It's like, we need to talk. And like she's rubbing her arm. And I'm like, that's just weird and wrong. I didn't like that scene. But overall, I thought the artwork was pretty good. Even though there were multiple artists, I do think Batman's art was the best. Catwoman, it was a little too shiny, her costume. I don't know. It was a little strange to me and some of the, again, posture and positions that they had her in. But overall, I wanted more from this issue. And I guess don't believe the hype just yet for Punchline because we don't know much about her. But hopefully we learn more about her in this Hell Arisen issue or issue 90 of Batman. So I'm giving that 2.5 stars, I think, or maybe it was 2 stars, and that was number 11. Yeah, that was 2.5 stars. And number 10 for me is also probably the other big book that came out this week, and that is Wolverine issue 1. And Wolverine, I do like Logan a lot, but I tend to like Logan more in team books. So when he's interacting with his friends, which is weird because he's such a loner character and that defines him. But I like when he's interacting with other people. So I don't know how long I'm going to pick up Wolverine for. There wasn't really a moment here where I'm like, oh my god, this is so different than all the other X-Men titles. It's pretty much the same thing. Political aspect of the Krakoa flowers. I don't know what they're calling the flowers, but the flowers that they've been giving away for the medicine. There's a little story about that. There is a good cliffhanger somewhat where we get to see Wolverine goes crazy for some reason and hurts his friends, and we don't know why. And it was interesting to see Wolverine happy. That's usually not a start of a Wolverine book, so all those things were interesting, but again, not enough for me to be like, oh, I need issue 2. And not enough for a $7.99 book. I feel like this was so much longer than it needed to be. I think if it was just that first story, it would have been a stronger issue. But I don't know if I'm going to get that next issue. Artwork is really good, though. Gritty, matches the actual flagship X-Men title. So I do like the art. We'll see if I get issue 2. So Wolverine issue 1 gets 2.5 stars. And that is number 10. See, did you hear that big slam? It's a large book, and it didn't need to be. Anyways, moving on to number 9. This is a lot lower than usual, and that is Teen Titans, issue 39. So Teen Titans, I love this book usually, but this was kind of a weird arc where Djinn is still in her ring, and they introduce a new character related to her, and I just feel like there wasn't enough of the team dynamic. I love the emotional beats we've been recently getting with them and kind of learning more from their mistakes, and we only get that towards the tail end of the issue. Everything else is just like exposition. It's a very heavy exposition issue and more of an action issue, and I tend to like the emotional beats a bit more. And again, I wasn't connected to the villain enough to warrant that exposition. There's also a different artist, but I do like the artwork overall, even though I've kind of actually gotten used to our actual artists on the book, but I do think it was pretty solid, the art overall. But yeah, just a very wordy issue and very exposition-y, and I just don't think it necessarily needed to be that wordy. So Teen Titans issue 39 gets 2.5 stars, and that is number 9. Moving on to number 8. This is actually higher than I expected, but also, like, not a 3-star book, so take that as you will. And that is Flash Forward issue 6. So this is also another big book that came out this week. And I followed this whole entire series. I'm proud of myself because I didn't quite love it. But I'm like, there's something there that I want to find out what's going on with Wally. And I'm glad I did, because this last issue is going to connect to Free Comic Book Day and I guess some of the other stuff they're doing with the DC Universe. And I do think this is the best issue of the series, but I don't think this was a good series. So with this issue, we get to see the last moments between Wally and his kids, and then him going on the Morbius chair and pretty much forgetting them and his wife, Linda. So they are actually remembering everything. So his kids exist again, so I'm happy about that. And I like the moments between them, but I don't know where they're taking Wally West. You know, it's so interesting because, like, DC Rebirth built themselves on hope, and that Wally West was the hope, and he was the symbol of hope and the anchor. So it's just so interesting to see him still symbolize what the DC Universe is at. Like, I don't know if they're fully at the hope level that they want to be, and Wally West is 100% the analogy with that, where I think the direction they're taking Wally West is the confusion they have of what identity they want for DC Comics right now. So I particularly didn't love the ending. I don't know where this Dr. Manhattan stuff is going. I guess we'll see in Free Comic Book Day. And I still think the narrative itself was pretty messy, but I do think there was better character beats in this issue compared to previous issues where he's just like traveling the multiverse. And I feel like it finally got to the point of the story, even if we don't all agree with the point. So Flash Forward issue 6 gets 2.5 stars. I do think it was a better issue. I do think you should read it if you're interested in the DC universe, but I don't think it was a great issue. Moving on to number 7, which is Captain Marvel issue 15. So Captain Marvel, it's a little bit of a longer arc right now with this whole Captain Marvel is a villain, but she's not a villain, and she has to convince people within Singularity that she's not a villain. But I actually had a fun time with this issue, even though I do think this arc is taking a while to get to the end. I liked her trying to fight Jen and how that's different than all the other Avengers. I liked her going up against Captain America and him just yielding and trusting her. Even though I think it was just like, we can't have another character and another issue for her to fight. I think that was the real point, but it made sense narrative-wise that we just saw him surrender, and I enjoyed that. And then there's a good cliffhanger where the villain turns the tables and is literally taking control of Captain Marvel and all these clone versions of the Avengers that he doesn't know are clones. So I'm interested in the ending. I thought it was a pretty good issue. I don't love the structure of the storyline, but I think it's a cool action plot line. So I'm going to give that 3.5 stars. Good artwork and still fun dialogue to see Carol's relationship with the other Avengers. Moving on to number 6, I had a lot of good books up to this point that I really enjoyed this week. And number 6 for me is Ghost Spider issue 7. So just missed my top 5. But this is more of a point A to point B issue to describe what's been going on with Johnny and Sue and what their life is in this world. And I actually really love that Gwen knows that they're the Fantastic Four in other worlds. Because usually in these type of stories, especially Elseworld stories, you're like, oh, I'm so smart. I know, like, the reader is like, I'm so smart. I know what's going to happen next because I know where their point of origin is in another world. So it's kind of cool that a character themselves are kind of us. It's like, well, I know they're the Fantastic Four in other titles, or in other, not other titles, but other universes. So they're probably, like, gonna get powers, but that wouldn't make sense because look at Reed of our world. So it's kind of cool to see Gwen in that point of view, and us really not knowing what the hell's going to happen with Sue and Johnny and what their destiny is within this universe. I think they're going to be evil. I think they're working with Doctor Doom. That's my prediction, but I'm excited to see how they're going to get powers and how this is going to relate to their social media aspect, because it seems like they already got plans with that. So I think they've been lying. They definitely know that they've been gone longer than they thought. They're going to go up against the mom because they ruined their lives. But I think it's a really cool twist on these characters. And that's what I've loved about this universe is like really, truly twisting what we know about these franchises, but still keeping at the core of what they're all about. So Ghost Spider issue 7 gets 4 stars. Again, it is a bit of a point A to point B issue. Not a lot happens, but there's a lot of cool stuff to speculate about. And artwork, as always, is really solid and I would say just fun overall and expressive, which I love. Moving on to number 5, which is Runaways issue 30. And again, the same thing like Ghost Spider. This is more just moving the plot along, but it's moving the plot along in a really cool direction. So I love that this has to do with Gert, and she's kind of the leader of this storyline, and she's like, my friends are going to die. What the hell do I do? And she's learning more about the J-Team, and for us to learn more about the J-Team as well. And Doc Justice definitely has tricks up his sleeves, wanting his team to get a reality show. And then everyone else is like, this happened before. It didn't go well. And Carolina is trying to listen to Doc Justice, who says, hey, you know, this girl, she's an eco-terrorist pretty much, put her down. And Carolina does so, and it doesn't seem like it's going to work in her favor at the end of this issue. So yeah, there was a lot of fun stuff, but I love Gert in this issue. I think I love that she's taking the reins in a story and really showing a side that the other team doesn't see. And also there's just like fun small moments, like the beginning of the issue where they're all taking a picture and one of the photographers is like, hey, Gloom, don't smile. And then she's like, what? Like, I want to smile. And Carolina's like, but you hate smiling. You hate when people say, like, to smile. It's like, well, it doesn't mean I don't, like, I want to be told not to smile. So I love, like, kind of the reverse of that, and that was hysterical. And the artwork is always top-notch and works with the comedic beats, the emotional beats. The action in this issue is just perfectly balanced, and it's a really well-done issue, and I think that the next issue is going to be really explosive. It's just kind of building up there, and that's why it was number 5, is because it's more of a build-up issue, but it was a good build-up issue. So I'm going to give that 4 stars, and that is number 5. Moving on to number 4, which is Marauders, issue 8. Love this cover, and just love Russell Doterman's artwork. And with this issue, I was surprised we actually get the revelation of Kitty's death, and the team mourning her. I do wish it was a little bit more about Kitty. It's very much just like, we found her body, what do we do? I feel numb about this. I did like Storm's monologue, or I guess just dialogue, between her and Emma a lot. Just their relationship with Kitty and what that meant, and just like how they don't know how to process their feelings. That's something I actually enjoyed about this issue, because usually with R.I.P. issues, even though I don't think Kitty's dead, it's usually just like, well, let me think back about the best time I had with Kitty Pryde. But in real death, in real life, you don't, sometimes you can't even just process that. You're just like shocked. You're paralyzed. And I liked how that was showcased here, and in that numbness feeling. And it was a good issue. I thought it was really solid. Love the artwork. I love the new artist for this book. I think it's really crisp, and I'm excited to see where this goes and what's going to happen with Kitty, and how these Lockheed endings have to be connected to this. Is Kitty like somehow with Lockheed? What's going on? Like, how it has to be hope that Kitty's alive somehow, even though her body was found. So I'm curious about where this is going to go. So Marauders issue 8 gets 4 stars, and that is number 4. So moving on to number 3, which is Family Tree issue 4. Man, this book is so good. It's definitely one of my favorite indies, and I feel like not enough people are talking about it. This issue in particular, it doesn't stall at all, and that's, my favorite type of indies, when you get enough answers, but you also have enough questions that you want to follow the book. And this issue does a perfect balance of that, where the grandpa reveals a lot about this kind of tree aspect of the book, and there's some really good action of who's trying to chase them. And then what really made this number 3 for me was the ending, where we get to see Grandpa and Dad talk to each other, and Grandpa's ready to die. He's like, I'm ready to give up, and Dad's like, no, you can't do this to me. You left me for all my life. You can't do this. And how his relationship with his father is kind of similar but different to his own relationship with his family. He didn't want to leave, and also his ex-wife does not want to believe that. So there's a lot of great emotional stories here, a lot of good character beats, but then it balances with action and mystery, and yeah, it's a really fun series. So I also really like the artwork. It's just a really unique look, and people are trees. They're turning into trees. People are talking about trees. It's a very unique concept. So Family Tree issue 4 gets 4.5 stars, and that is number 3. Moving on to number 2, one of my favorite superhero books out there, and that is Jane Foster Valkyrie issue 8. Another just perfect issue in a lot of regards, and it goes into structure, honestly. So the opening of the issue opens up with Jane and her friend. For some reason I can't remember her name. I think it's... Is it Alex? I think it's Alex. But her friend, who is the only human friend she has, and they're just talking about dating, and they're talking about their woes, and Jane pretty much realizing, I do not have a normal life, and I don't know if I can even spend time with somebody that can't understand this concept. And even for other superheroes, she's like, oh, I don't know about him either. So that was a really fun opening, because this book is about Thor and Jane, which obviously has to do with their romance as well. And then it goes into what I love so much about this book is the balance between life and death, human and God. And that's always been the representation of Jane. So the Earth is literally dying, and we have Jane and the rest of the Avengers trying to figure out why this is happening. And it goes back to some mythology within Asgard and with Thor. So Jane and Thor team up, and Thor is taken over by this creature. So what is Jane going to do to heal the Earth and heal Thor? And it's just a really cool issue. And I don't know, when I was reading it, and again, what I love about this book is the easy switch between Valkyrie and Jane. I love that. I love how much she switched on and off, and there's this one scene, it's a very quiet scene, but I loved it, where there's this man who dies because of this Earth issue, and she quickly changes into Jane. She's not Valkyrie. She's like, I need to handle this as a doctor, as Jane Foster. And then right when it goes into the action again, she's like, all right, I'm Valkyrie, let's go. And I don't know if everyone's read American Vampire, but there's always a line from that book that sticks with me from, like, vampires I've never really seen before, is that in that book, Pearl is the main character, and she said about her vampirism is always underneath, you know, it's like I could feel it, and what scares me is that quick turn. And I think that's such a similar point with Jane, but maybe not out of fear, but out of maybe even hope, is that it's such a quick change, right? She's technically both people, but she's technically not. And yeah, I just love it, and I just love how self-identity is just represented in such a different way in this book. And Jane is just such an awesome lead. I love her voice. I love the artwork. I love the humor for this book. It's just such a good book. And it does things that we've seen a million times with superheroes in such a fresh way, which is, I feel like, always been Jane and what she continues to do. So I love the book. I'm just gushing at this point. So Jane Foster Valkyrie issue 8 gets 4.5 stars, and that is number 2. Moving on to number 1, which is also, I think, just definition perfectly written issue. And that goes to the Red Mother issue 3, and that's from Boom Studios. So Red Mother, what I loved about this issue is the slow tension that's building, but also that it doesn't take too long to get things done. So in the last issue, there's this puzzle that shows up at our main character's door, and I think most books, it'd take about 10 issues to even figure out what this puzzle is. She figures it out in this issue, and she calls the person that gives her the puzzle. And obviously this is going to connect to the bigger mystery of Red Mother, but also it's her just trying to live her life again. She's hanging out with her friend. She's trying to have a good time. She's going to her doctor appointments. But every single time something goes wrong, like after she has a good night with her friend, she goes home and sleeps, and she's having these dreams about this mother, and she's not having a good night's sleep. When she goes to the doctor's office, like there's still this lurking and this tension of whatever's following her, which is this Red Mother, which is just like textbook way to write a thriller / horror, and that's why I gave this number 1. It's just like, it's perfectly executed. Artwork is so freaking good. The emotions are there. The character is there, and I'm just totally soaked into this book, and it's really good. If you haven't read Red Mother, go for it. It's so good, especially if you like horror. So hopefully you guys enjoyed. This is Comic Uno. Let me know in the comments below what your favorite books of the week, what your least favorite books of the week were. And also go check out my comics, like Follow Like Daughter and They Call Her Dancer. Go check out my Twitter and Facebook, where you could follow me and follow my articles on Newsarama and what I'm up to. And then also check out our comic book podcast every Tuesday, where we discuss our favorite comics and comic book news. And that's Comic Book Weekly, again, every Tuesday at 10 p.m. Eastern Time on Comic Frontline. So hopefully you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you guys next week. Bye!